Behind every missing person case is a story, one that's special, sinister, or veiled in mystery. From tangled dealings, hidden pasts, or inexplicable events, these individuals became the unsuspecting prey of the phenomenon of the missing. So, join us for today's video as we're going to take a close look at 15 creepiest missing people mysteries that cannot be explained. Number 15. Alan Foster. The Alaskan Triangle has swallowed over 20,000 people since the 1970s. In 2013, it claimed experienced pilot Alan Foster, 47. Flying his newly purchased Piper PA-32 Cherokee from Atlanta to Anchorage, he stopped in Yakutat for fuel on September 9th. 18 minutes after departing, his plane dropped off radar near the Gulf of Alaska and Malaspina Glacier. Search crews scoured the area. 5 days later, a faint signal pinged from Mount Eberly before disappearing. A fellow pilot recalled warning Foster of poor weather. Foster replied he would hug the beach, his last known words. Despite extensive air and ground searches from Cordova to Prince William Sound, no wreckage was found. Investigators believe he may have diverted toward the Copper River to avoid the storm, but nothing surfaced. Foster and his Cherokee remain missing, another unsolved case deep in the lore of the Alaskan Triangle. Number 14. Lark Lorraine Montigue. By 2007, Lark Lorraine Montigue had been married to Dennis for 23 years. They had 2 adult children, and Lark had custody of her daughter's 3 children. On September 21st, Dennis took his prescribed Ambien. Before falling asleep, he saw Lark pacing the hallway. He claimed she left afterward in his 2002 Chevrolet Trailblazer, Utah Plate 215 LTE, visiting a neighbor to drink and talk until 3 a.m. The neighbor followed her home but watched as she abruptly reversed, hit the fence, and drove away. She was never seen again. A possible sighting came minutes later in downtown Magna, where a similar vehicle swerved before heading toward Highway 111. The next morning, Dennis searched bars and restaurants she frequented, finding nothing. As a type 2 diabetic, Lark left her medication behind. Family insisted she wouldn't abandon her grandchildren. Despite many searches, both she and the Trailblazer remain missing to this day. Number 13. Jennifer Louise Bell. Though her early adulthood had its share of struggles, Jennifer Louise Bell was turning her life around, her 3 children being the biggest driving force. Aside from her turbulent past, Jennifer was a typical Nashville, Tennessee resident, making the most of life. But in July 2023, everything for the Bell family changed forever. Jennifer vanished without a trace, leaving behind unsettling questions and barely any clues, just missing person posters and fading memories. That month, she met her mother at the Shell gas station on 3863 Dickerson Pike, driving a black SUV owned by her on-and-off boyfriend, Jacob McCord. After that meeting, both she and the SUV disappeared. McCord later told the family he'd awoken in Lee County, Alabama, to find Jennifer, along with his phone, wallet, and vehicle, gone. Days later, the SUV was found abandoned with its passenger window smashed and side mirror missing. McCord, later arrested on unrelated charges, remains uncooperative. As of August 2025, Jennifer is still missing. Number 12. Carla Valpios. Seasoned traveler and Texas Tech graduate, 35-year-old Carla Valpios was blind but undeterred by challenges. In December 2018, she visited Peru for a wedding, later touring Machu Picchu with a group after officials initially denied her entry. That night, she stayed at the Piranha Hostel. By morning, she and her belongings were gone. A text sent earlier claimed she was exploring the city. A taxi driver reported dropping her at the Cusco bus terminal. A Machu Picchu employee said he saw her later, appearing fine, but her family doubts she made it there. Before vanishing, Carla texted a friend, "I had a big issue that I need to resolve, which I'll do before I get home." Peruvian police provided no breakthroughs. Her father and brother searched locally but found no leads. In 2019, detectives suggested she may have been targeted by criminals. To this day, the fate of Carla remains a mystery. What do you think about her? Let us know. Number 11. Nash Quinn. It's been a year since artist and cyclist Nash Quinn vanished somewhere in Wyoming's rugged mountains. He was last seen on July 8, 2024, but wasn't reported missing until 2 weeks later. Nash, a professor at the University of Wyoming specializing in jewelry and metalsmithing, had planned to spend the summer traveling for workshops. Concerns began when an Arizona organizer couldn't reach him about travel plans. His apartment was untouched, wallet and phone still inside, with only his white single-speed bike, helmet, and cycling shoes missing. Known for survival rides, he often explored remote mountain trails. Searches centered on his usual spots: Pole Mountain, Happy Jack, and Rogers Canyon. Later, a friend discovered he'd been researching Sheep Mountain, a far riskier trail suited for hikers. It's feared he attempted it solo, unprepared for the hazards. Despite extensive searches on foot, horseback, and ATV, nothing was found. Anyone with information should contact the Laramie Police Department. Number 10. Mary Dawn Wilson. Well, Alaska records 2,250 disappearances per year, twice the national average, and in 2022, 69-year-old Mary became one of them. On July 2nd, she left a Healy residence and vanished. Nearly 2 weeks later, her Ford Focus was found stranded 6.8 miles down the Stampede Trail, a remote Denali Borough road. Inside the locked car was a young girl she'd been babysitting, alone for at least 2 days, but in good health. Nearby, 7.8 miles farther, Mary's belongings were scattered, yet there was no trace of her. Troopers believe the car became stuck, prompting Mary to lock the child inside and seek help, but something stopped her from returning. Why remains unknown. Days passed before she was reported missing, raising further questions. The strange circumstances, an abandoned car, a child alone, and scattered possessions, have kept the case unsolved. Anyone with information should contact Alaska State Troopers at 907-269-5511. Number 9. Ryan Stuka Sun Peaks in British Columbia is a small ski resort town about 56.6 kilometers northeast of Kamloops. It was here that 20-year-old Ryan planned to spend the winter of 2017 to 18. In the early hours of February 17, 2018, he vanished without a trace. Ryan, an avid snowboarder, came for seasonal work, making the 9-hour drive from Beaumont with his friend James. They lived in housing for seasonal workers. On February 16th, Ryan and friends visited 2 bars, including a silent disco, before heading to a house party on Burfield Drive, near his home. Around 2 a.m., friends assumed he left with them, but soon realized he hadn't. Temperatures were far below freezing, and snow covered the streets. Searchers expected to find footprints or scent trails, but found nothing. Despite immediate focused efforts along the short route home, no clues have surfaced. Anyone with information can contact the Kamloops RCMP. His family is still waiting for him. Number 8. Nancy Snow. Nancy Snow vanished under deeply suspicious circumstances in early November 1980. A 44-year-old mother of 3, she had moved from California to Annapolis, Maryland, to work in politics. She spent the 1980 election season with the Republican National Committee before returning to Missouri. En route home, she stopped in Baltimore for a party hosted by her new partner, Paul Goodman, staying the night at a hotel. The next morning, Paul Collins, a friend who had been house-sitting for her, picked her up. This was the last confirmed sighting. Nancy never called her family as planned, missing even her daughter's birthday. Collins claimed she left on a spontaneous boat trip with a man called Captain J. His story changed several times, and no trace of this man was ever found. In January 1981, Collins was living in her home and using her checkbook. Despite the inconsistencies, he remained a person of interest. Number 7. Kenneth Jones. Kenneth was just 18 years old, with his entire future ahead of him when he vanished without a trace. A renewed appeal for information in 2024 brought his case back into public attention, but Kenneth is still missing. He was last seen at his home in the Ancram Court area of Scotland on November 2, 1998. That day was completely ordinary. He spent it playing video games with his uncle, who lived on the same street, before walking back to his parents' home. Around 10:30 p.m., he went to bed, and his parents retired soon after. By 7 a.m., his room was empty. They thought he might have gone jogging or stayed at a friend's, but when he didn't return the next day, they reported him missing. He'd left with little: a black leather jacket, black jeans, and yellow-green shoes, unprepared for the cold. Despite repeated appeals, no solid leads have emerged. Number 6. Nancy Bunley. On September 22, 2024, 31-year-old Nancy of Lexington dropped coffee and tea at her family's home before visiting boyfriend Lom near Abbott's Creek Bridge. She was last seen leaving his house in his black Honda Pilot after an argument. Nancy never returned home and was reported missing the next day. She wouldn't have left her young daughter. Her phone was found near Abbott's Creek, becoming the focus of search efforts. The Honda remains missing. Lom has a prior conviction for first-degree assault, 2003, Connecticut. In January, he was arrested for firearm possession, unrelated to the case. That month, 3 of his relatives, a brother, sister, and nephew, were charged with obstructing justice in connection with Nancy's disappearance. Despite arrests, no evidence links them directly to her case. Nancy and the vehicle are still missing. Number 5. Joanne Benner in Bayou George, which is in Florida. 21-year-old Joanne Benner lived with her husband, Gary, and their 2 young daughters. On May 13, 1976, Gary claimed she left during the night, leaving a note explaining her departure. Police found red spots throughout the home, including on a phone, and a section of burned carpet in the trash. Gary gave conflicting explanations: fingernail polish or blood from a fight. Joanne's young daughter later told relatives her mother left in distress, bleeding from her stomach, but the claim couldn't be confirmed. Disturbingly, Gary allegedly asked friends to send letters and toys to the children, pretending to be from Joanne. DNA testing wasn't available at the time, and samples degraded before they could be analyzed decades later. No one has seen or heard from Joanne since. The case remains cold, marked by suspicious circumstances and unanswered questions about that night. All right, now, let's move to Number 4. Tony Kronos. Where's Tony? That's the question Asa Chandler hasn't stopped asking since his old friend vanished. 40-year-old Tony Kronos was last seen on March 6, 2025, at his home on Eleonora Street in Eagle River, which is in Alaska. 3 months later, his friends and family are still searching for answers. Asa met Tony back when he was Josh Kronbach. They grew up in Eagle River, big enough for strangers, small enough to bump into old classmates. Tony was the skinny, funny kid in the group, the one who'd tag along to bonfires at the sand dunes. Years later, he transformed himself into a bodybuilder, winning Mr. Alaska in 2015. When he wasn't in the gym, he worked as a longshoreman, recently buying land in Hawaii with plans to move. The day he disappeared, a neighbor saw him pull into his garage after a workout. His 2 cars, wallet, keys, and phone were all still inside. Soon after, friends launched a "Where's Tony?" campaign, handing out posters and raising thousands in reward money. But so far, no trace. Number 3. Norma Yates. On July 29, 2023, police in Winslow Township responded to a welfare check request from a neighbor worried about 62-year-old Norma. They found her nearby, charging her phone, gave her water, and she returned home. At 5 p.m., she was seen near her trailer in Atco. By the next morning, she missed coffee with a friend, and on July 31st, she was reported missing. Family was alarmed. Norma never left without notice, especially while caring for grandchildren during their father's cancer treatment. Her home was in disarray, uncharacteristic of her. Debit card, ID, phone, and shoes remained inside. She had no car, and no signs suggested she'd left willingly. Surveillance showed nothing, and searches, including in West Atco, found no trace. The case went cold until July 2 years later, when a tip placed her in Atlantic City on the day she vanished. Her whereabouts remain unknown. So, what's your take on this disappearance? Number 2. Frank Manano. On August 17, 2020, respected Alaskan educator and subsistence mentor Frank Manano vanished near Nenana. That day, he was returning from Fairbanks and stopped for firewood. Witnesses last saw him between Esther and Nenana. His car was later found abandoned on Standard Creek Road near Old Nenana Highway. Searches led 2.5 miles to a broken-into cabin with a fire inside. The car keys were there. No other trace of Frank was found. Authorities believe members of the public may hold vital information, but no one has come forward. The lack of DNA or blood suggested no foul play, though it hasn't been ruled out. Residents familiar with the Alaskan Triangle's legends believe something supernatural could be involved. The area's reputation for strange vanishings deepens the mystery. Frank's disappearance remains unsolved, and his family continues to seek answers. All right, guys, now let's end this list with number 1, Shannon Clare Labau. In Helena, Montana, 23-year-old Shannon Clare Labau lived separately from his girlfriend, Leslie, with whom he shared a young daughter. He worked as a chef at a sports bar and was close to his mother, Sally. On February 23, 1999, Shannon withdrew $3,000 from a downtown bank to possibly buy a muscle car in Townsend with old friend Steve. That was the last confirmed sighting. Steve returned alone, offering conflicting stories, dropping Shannon off downtown at his apartment, or that Shannon got another ride. Shannon allegedly left instructions for his mother to collect his paycheck and lock his mobile home. He missed work and an optometrist appointment, left paychecks uncollected, and his red 1976 Chevrolet truck vanished. Police couldn't locate the car seller. Shannon's bank account remained untouched. Despite searches, neither he nor his truck was found. The case remains unsolved, clouded by conflicting accounts and unanswered. Questions about that February morning? If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.